All right, so thank you for the introduction. This topic cannot be, more relevant than it is today. A lot of us might already know what's happening around with the FTX, and just last month, what happened with Binance. So hacks of around $600 million, and again with the FTX around the same amount. So the importance of why we are discussing this is the when smart contracts are hacked, when a hacker or a malicious actor has found a vulnerability, the impact is almost in billions or half a billion at least. So that is why maybe a month or two ago, this topic was not as relevant as it is today. So with that, I'll just briefly introduce myself. As I just mentioned, I'm an information security specialist at Perseus, which is part of Constellation Software, headquartered in Canada. I did my MSc from Queen Mary University of London. I've been working in the field of information security for more than 10 years. And I have done various certifications like CH, CPT, CIH. But one of the most relevant certifications to this session, which I would like to mention, is Certified Blockchain Security Examiner. And I really like to, share my knowledge and learn from others as well. And I've been an instructor at Cybery. I've been a speaker at different conferences, including this one and Hack Summit in Poland. And I like to share my knowledge on my YouTube channel as well. It's named Cyber Section. And another feather on my hat is that I've been a finalist in a national hacking competition. So let's move on to the topic. So before we understand how smart contracts are hacked, let us briefly try to understand, for those who do not know, what a smart contract is. So just like in a physical world, when two parties exchange a commodity, and let's say one is a buyer and one is a seller, they sign a contract with certain terms and conditions. So similarly, in the digital world, that can be done through a smart contract. And this term smart contract was coined by a developer, Nick Szabo, back in 1997. And his example was very, very good as well. He said that, you see a vending machine in which you put some amount and then you get a product in return without a middleman in between. So this is one of the features of the smart contracts, that there is no middle party involved, which you can say it is decentralized. The other thing is that it is transparent, which we are going to see in just a moment. And the third thing is that it is irreversible or unmodifiable. I mean, so with that features in mind, that a smart contract, just like in the physical world, is signed by two parties with certain terms and conditions, and also when those terms and conditions are true, the smart contract can also be automatically executed. So these are some of the basic functions and how smart contracts work. There's a buyer, there's a seller, they agreed on certain terms and conditions, and there's a certain exchange of maybe it can be a cryptocurrency, or it can be something, it can be an ownership of something. Since blockchain is not just limited to cryptocurrency, in the future we might see that, let's say, someone buys a property, and the transfer the transfer of ownership is done via smart contracts. So with that, let me just show you an example of this, that that smart contracts are transparent, and anyone can see this. So for example, this is a place where you can see the transaction. This is BSC scan, and you can see the transactions or the latest transactions over here. So what I'm trying to show you is that these are smart contracts being executed, and you can see from and to. And then if I go to verified contracts, I can see the actual contracts. For example, if I, let's say, click on any one of these contracts, I can see the actual contract that was being executed. So this is what we are talking about, that these contracts are visible and anyone can have a look at them. And this is a good thing in the sense that it is transparent, but vice versa, if there's a hacker who can find vulnerabilities, since the contract is visible, that can be a potential disaster. So usually the programming language used is Solidity, as you can see over here. And then, there are all the details. So this is an example of the smart contract, and the part that we were discussing, that it is transparent and visible to all. All right, so why should we secure these transactions? So as I was mentioning at the start of my session, so only recently a couple of very big hacks have occurred, of being the FTX one and the Binance one, and we are going to look how the Binance hack occurred in if time permits. But apart from that, there was the Poly network hack of around 600 million. There was the Ronin Bridge exchange attack of approximately 600 million as well. And another recent attack was the DeFi exchange Mango, and the hacked amount was somewhere around 100 million. And there was another hack which we are going to see, of the DAO attack, and we are going to discuss it in more detail. So I hope that you understand the point that I'm trying to make is that, for example, if there is a website of of a company, or it might be even a bank, and if it is hacked, maybe $10 million or $20 million might get hacked or transferred, which can potentially be traced as well. The issue with smart contracts is that if a vulnerability exists, for example, in the case of one, we are going to see that the ownership was transferred, the entire wallet can be drained. And the problem with this is that since the only thing that you know about the person to which those funds have been transferred is just his address, nothing else, which is, and like I said, is a two-edged sword. It is decentralized, but then the downside is that you cannot trace the person. So these are the two main reasons that once a hack occurs in smart contracts, the impact is in almost in millions, and then you can trace the person, which is why it makes it very, very important to make sure that those smart contracts are secure and they're properly audited before they are being deployed on the mainnet. So having understood why it is important to secure smart contracts, so this is some data that company named Solidified, which has conducted somewhere around 100 audits of different companies who have developed smart contracts, and they have mentioned what is the percentage of different vulnerabilities that they have found. So as you can see that around 28% are logical errors, which can range from maybe not properly defining variables or not initializing the variables properly. Around 20% is unauthorized access, which may be the transfer of ownership to someone else, or someone able to change the price of something instead of just the owner should be able to do it. And then of course there is a DOS attack, there's overflow attack, which we're also going to see. And this re-entrancy attack, which you see as 16%, I've come to this at the very end because I wanted to talk in a little bit more detail on this. So reentrancy attack is one of the most easiest to do or exploit. And the problem with the reentrancy attack is that once it is executed, if it exists, all the funds or the entire wallet of a person gets drained of all the funds. So it is, you can say, as we say in for any vulnerability, we define the criticality by the ease of its exploitation and the impact. So in this case, the ease of exploitation is easy and the impact is really huge as well. So reentrancy attack is something that is very, very important to understand, and we are going to look at it. So as I was saying, the DAO smart contract was drained back in 2016, around $150 million. But this was $150 million back in 2016. If you consider the amount of ETH that got stolen, maybe in today's numbers, it might be a lot more than 150 million, somewhere around 500 million or something. So approximately, again, $500 million. So what is reentrancy attack? So to understand it, let's take an example of a normal bank account. So let's say I have a bank account and someone requested for a transfer of funds from my bank account. And I had $100 in my account and someone requested $10 to be transferred to his account. So what should ideally happen is that his request to come to my bank, they should transfer $10 to him, and they should update my account and mention that it has now $90 in it. But what can happen is that when those $10 are transferred to his account, and before my account is updated as $90, that request is executed again. So from 90, my account goes to 80, and then 70 and 60 and so on, without getting updated and without the status being updated that the transaction has completed. So in the case of smart contracts, as you can see in the diagram, what happens is a malicious contract calls the withdraw balance function in a smart contract. And the next thing that happens is that the ether is transferred, or whatever the coin is, excuse me. And instead of then calling the function or executing the function update balance, what happens is that a fallback function is called in the malicious contract. And the fallback functions makes this withdraw balance function to be called again. And what happens is that my account, or whatever, whosever account is this, gets the funds transferred, and this keeps on happening until all the funds in this wallet are drained and all the funds are transferred to the malicious account. So let us see how that happens. So since part of my presentation includes the platforms that we can use to test smart contracts, and whoever attends this session should be able to do some hands-on. So the platform that can be used for the development and testing of smart contracts is Remix IDE. And you can just download it. And this is how it looks like. This is a platform, Remix Ethereum IDE. And what I can do is, as we were looking, so this is a contract. What I can do is I can just copy paste this contract into Remix, and then I can do different changes and see the effect of it. And I have copied a contract to show you how the reentrancy attack happens. So this is a reentrancy attack, and let me just show you what happens or first. So in Remix, what we do is, let's say I copied this attack and then I press compile. And then once it is compiled, I can deploy it. So this is just, you can see a simulation, but in the real world, once I press deploy, it gets deployed in the mainnet. And when I say mainnet, it means that it can interact with other contracts that are on the mainnet as well. But since this is just a simulation, so this is a very simple contract of, let's assume it's of a crypto exchange in which people can deposit funds and withdraw funds. And as you might know, in order to complete a transaction, you need to have a certain gas fees. So we are going to look at that. So I'm going to select the reentrancy contract and deploy it. Oh, so I had selected the attacker contract. So first I need to deploy the bank contract, or let's say it's named rewards contract over here. So now that it is deployed, I will go over here, and if I expand this, you can see it allows me to perform different functions such as deposit, withdraw, and to check balance. And the gas fees, we are calling it as gifts in this particular contract. So let's say I select another account, and let's say I want to deposit 10 Ether. And I press deposit, and if I click on get balance, I can see that 10 Ether have been deposited. And let's say another user deposit, let's say another 10 Ether. And the amount is now 20. And let's say this particular user, which has in his pocket about 90 Ether, since he has deposited 10 to the bank. Let's say he wants to withdraw in Ether, and if I press withdraw, you see that no withdrawal is taking place. The reason for that is that this particular user has not provided a gas fees. So I need to mention that how many, let's say, transactions can be allowed by, let's say, providing the gas fees. So now I mentioned that the gas fees or the gifts is 2, and I can also check it over here. So you can see the gifts number is 2. And now if this particular user tries to withdraw funds, you can see that his funds got incremented, and now it is 91. And the bank account also got decremented by 1, and it is now 19. So let's try this with another user, which already deposited 10 Ether. And if I press withdraw, as you can see, again, 1 Ether has been withdrawn. So, but now all my gas fees has been used. And now if I try to withdraw again, I can not withdraw, as you can see. And we'll just go into the code in a bit, but I'm going a bit quickly so that I can cover up how these things happen, and then how we can prevent it. And then if time permits, we are going to look into the code in more detail. So but just to give you an idea that this is the attacker part or the attack part in which the callback function or the fallback function is going to be called. And we're going to look in just a bit how that is possible. So now I'm going to deploy the attacker contract, and I need to bind it with the bank contract. So what I need to do is, this is the contract address, and I'll just copy and paste it over here since this is a requirement. And then I will deploy the attacker part. So now so we just saw that if I try to withdraw funds right now, I was not able to withdraw any funds. Let's try it with the attacker part. So if I press attack, and if I look at get balance, it stays the same because the gas fees is not present. So I'll just first provide with some gas fees, and I'll select another account because we need to show that this is a third person apart from those two people. And now this third person tries to withdraw. And if you can notice, instead of just 1 ether, he was able to withdraw 10 ether with just 1 gas fees. And what this is over here, we are also going to look at, or just note this part down, we are going to discuss it later on. But what you can observe that instead of 1 ether, 10 ether got transferred. So now let us come to the code. So as I was saying, that this reentrancy attack is really easy to exploit, and the impact of it, as you just saw, can be, this was just 1 ether for the sake of example, but it can potentially drain the entire wallet. And the problem is that how this could have been avoided is so simple that people are going to pull their hair from their heads. So if you look at this withdraw function, due to the problem why this is happening is because if you look at it, it says that when someone tries to withdraw, the amount is going to be 1 ether, given that the gift is greater than 0, and then the amount is transferred to the sender. And then once this has been done, you should decrement the gifts by 1. But the problem over here is this revert part that is sending it back to the withdrawal part without decrementing the gifts part. And then why just 10 ether was withdrawn is because in the attacker part, it is mentioned that it is going to be executed only 10 times for the sake of example. As you can see that, we are limiting the number of withdrawals to 10. Otherwise, this could have, went on. And if we look at the logs, there it is. So in the logs, you can see that this keeps on, gets called again and again, and the withdraw function gets called again and again. So you can see from 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 and so on. So now what I want to show you is how easily this could have been avoided. All you needed to do was, so this actually happened in the DAO attack. And all you needed to do was make sure that the gas part is decremented before the withdrawal function can be called again. So we made this change, and since we have made the change, we need to compile this again, and then we need to deploy this again. So we'll just deposit. So the amount is deposited, and then we'll deploy the attacker. Let's mention allow gifts again. Select another account. So now you can see that instead of 10 ETH, only 1 ETH was withdrawn even by the attacker part. And you saw that the only change I did in the contract was just this one line that was misplaced or not properly mentioned. And all I did was made sure this before the revert function sends it back to the withdrawal function again, the gift or the gas is decremented by 1. So I hope you understood what the reentrancy attack is, how it can be exploited. I know that I went through it very quickly, but the objective was to give you an idea that how easily it can be avoided. So with that, let us come to the next one, which is the unauthorized access part. And again, this already happened. So in 2017, there was a user who was able to take the ownership of the entire exchange, and around 500,000 ether was drained. So how this happened? So basically the ownership was transferred, and let's look at the example of that. So there's another contract. So let us assume that we are in the future and it's year maybe 2040, and the ownership of properties is done through smart contracts. So this is a smart contract that allows owner of a property to set the price of a property and then deploy the contract, and then the price will remain there. So let us deploy this contract. Let us compile this. Okay, so you can see the real estate agreement contract is compiled, and let's say it is regarding a property, and I am the owner of that property. And let's say I set the price of that property to 10 ether. All right, and then I deploy the contract, and the contract is deployed. And if I click on price, I can see that the price is set to 10 ether. All right, so this was, let's say, my account with which I set the price, and let's say I wanted to change the price to, let's say, 15 ether, and the price has been changed to 15 ether. But the problem is that if someone else tries to change the price of this property to, let's say, 5 ether, what happens now? So as you can see, the problem is that anyone can set the price of this property, and that's the issue of the ownership not properly checked, that only the owner of the contract can set the price of certain things. So how do we address this? So for this, because we are short on time, I'm just going to copy paste these lines and explain why I am adding these lines. So first thing we need to do is we need to mention the address, and that is going to be the owner. And we are going to set that the owner is going to be this, message sender or the owner of the contract. And then we are going to set a requirement function which will make sure that only the owner can update or change the price, and it will check or through the require function, is the owner the message sender? All right, so let's compile this again. Oh, sorry. All right. Okay, since I have changed and compile it again, I need to deploy it again. So I was the owner of the property. And I set the price at 10. If I check, the price is 10 Ether. And let's say someone else tries to change the price of the property to 5 Ether. Let's see if he's able to do that. And as you can see, he's not able to do that. And if we can just see the logs, right? So I just scrolled this up so that you can see the logs. So first of all, when I press on price, it's not getting updated. It stays the same at 10 Ether. And then the error thrown, this cross means that the transaction was unsuccessful, and the error thrown is only the owner can update the price or the agreement terms, which is mentioned in the required function. All right, so how much more time do I have? Can someone tell me?
You have 4 minutes left.
4 minutes left. All right.
And then we have some time for questions.
Okay, so so these are the two vulnerabilities that we could look into some detail, but there are plenty. So I have very little time. So what I'm going to do is that I would like that to mention that some of the platforms that you can use to find about these vulnerabilities. So one is the Damn Vulnerable DeFi, in which you can find plenty of vulnerable contracts. So I showed you just a couple. So what you can do is go through these contracts, copy paste them into your Remix IDE, and then if you think that you want to test your skills and you want to do some bug bounty related to smart contracts, then the place is hacken.io, in which you can, okay, this was loading. All right, so you got the idea. So just like, let's say, HackerOne or Bugcrowd, this is the bug bounty program for smart contracts.